so I'm doing okay with the car, and I'm very happy.
Hi, my name is Ravi Raj Bejan, and this is my Thunderbird Storm by the British manufacturer Triumph. I bought this bike in December 2017, and I have so far covered about 14,500 kilometers. It's a 339 kilo weight motorcycle, a 1700cc engine, producing 96.5 bhp of power and 156 Newton meters of torque. So this is a parallel twin engine, which is very typical of Triumph. Unlike the American cruisers, which are all V-twin engines. Being a parallel twin engine, it is a lot smoother than a V-twin engine. The parallel twin obviously gives the advantage of this being a much smoother and much more planted motorcycle, because it eliminates the vibrations that you normally associate with a V-twin. And the ride becomes a lot more comfortable, a lot more pliant. So despite being a very heavy and a big motorcycle, it is also much easier to ride as compared to the same size and heavy engine motorcycles or cruisers. That in the cities, when you have to go for constant gear changes, it becomes really tough. And, your arm gets a big exercise while you're changing gears, especially in the cities and stop-go traffic. So one actually dreads being in the stop-go traffic. Shifting of gears, especially with the clutch being so heavy, is a bit of a task. It has the front 120 mm wide tire, and in the rear 200 mm wide tire, shot on a 15-inch wheel. Twin 310 mm floating discs, Nissin 4-piston fixed calipers, 10 mm disc, Brembho 2-piston floating calipers. These are ventilated discs. The suspension is by Showa, 2 in the middle, 2 in the front, and twin shockers in the rear. On normal highway conditions, the bike is giving an average of about 16 to 17 kilometers per liter. Because in the cities, while the traffic is stop and go, so 16. If you're driving really hard, it will go down to 15. It will go up to about 17, but that's about it. So average 16 is a ballpark figure which you can take both for the highway as well as the city riding. Service cost is approximately 20,000 rupees, and the service interval is 10,000 kilometers. Apart from the normal service, I have had so far got to change the clutch lever wire, and I have also got my tires replaced at about 11,000 kilometers. The stock tires on which the bike was supplied ran out at about 11,000 kilometers. So these were Metzelers 888. I have replaced the tires with, again, Metzelers, but Metzelers introduced a new tire in April 2019 by the name of Cruise Tech. So now we have on my motorcycle Metzeler Cruise Tech tires, which are so far not available in India as of now, January 2020. But these I got from Germany for my motorcycle. Spare should cost you about 35,000 rupees. Triumph had one dealership and service center in Okhla in Delhi. But now since they've closed it down, and if in case I have to get it serviced again, I'll have to go to their service center in Gurgaon. It's obviously a bit of a distance from us. The bigger problem sometimes is, if you have, the regular spares are always available, but sometimes if you break your motorcycle or there are some spares which are just not available at times, may take some time to come. So that could be a dampener in terms of your riding experience. The regular parts like tires or your clutch wire or your bulbs, etc. Those are generally available, and once you visit the service center, you will get a replacement. So when I was in the market for buying a motorcycle, I looked at 3 or 4 different motorcycles. I looked at a couple of Harleys, which is the Fat Boy and the Fat Bob. I looked at the Ducati X-Diavel, and then of course I saw this one. So when I test rode the Harleys, while yes, these are stunners, probably I would rate them to be better looking than this bike. But the fact is that 2 things which kind of ticked off the list, they ticked off the list for me, were one, that the V-twin engine was obviously, there was a lot of vibration in that engine. And the second, being an air-cooled motorcycle, there was a lot of heat. Even in the month of December when I tried on the test ride, there was a lot of heat that was generated, and when I'm sitting on the motorcycle, I could feel that heat coming through. So this is something very, it was difficult for me to accept. On the other hand, the Ducati X-Diavel, again a stunner when it comes to looks, and a wonderfully engineered machine. But it really, again, motorcycling is not about logic. So when I rode that motorcycle, it didn't really, tingle the inside in terms of the emotions that I would have probably, it should have tingled. So it didn't. I cannot say anything wrong with that machine. It's just simply fantastic. It's very good looking, and it's basically like a sports bike on a model like a Cruiser. But then I test rode this. It was simply, it was like love at first sight. Again, it was about emotions and not about logic. So then I said that this is the one that is for me. I rode this, and the smile I had on my face at that point of time when I had the test ride, I said, yes, this is it. So it didn't really take long for me to take a decision in terms of choosing this motorcycle. Now this is a typical engine for a Cruiser, which has a very high amount of torque, which also means it has a very high pulling power for the motorcycle. I'll give an example that if in case you are in the third or fourth gear and you want to overtake, the power that it produces even by a flick of your wrist is just tremendous. While it will not be as nimble as the sports bikes, but this is meant for long distance cruising. The bike is always ready to rumble when you twist the throttle. Obviously you have 156 Newton meters of torque on demand, so virtually you just flick the throttle and it will just go. Obviously it accelerates very quickly. Again, it can't be compared to those of the sports bikes, but for a Cruiser it's a very, very quick machine. On the highway and at very high speeds, this is one motorcycle actually you can cruise at a speed of 160 without having to feel any kind of discomfort. The machine itself remains very, very planted. There could be crosswinds which kind of could be a little undulating, but at the end of the day, this is a pleasure to ride even at high speeds, and more importantly, the pleasure comes from the fact that this remains literally bolted onto the road. Being on speed and being confident has a lot to do also with the braking. The fact that you are equally confident of braking without having to worry about not being able to do it on time. Also, the bike is equipped with ABS, which gives it further safety in terms of the braking. So there's no possibility of locking your brakes and skidding, which could be a real-time problem. Very good thing about this motorcycle is the self-cancelling indicators, which means that after a certain period of time, they switch off themselves. So you don't have to worry about, once you activated the indicator that somebody has to switch it off. This is the stock exhaust of the motorcycle. So it's a very quiet motorcycle. Sometimes, when you're standing in traffic, the person next to you does not even realize that there's a big motor running next to it. But obviously, when the moment you flick the wrist, and then it gives that tremendous growl, not just the exhaust but the engine, the whole thing is that tremendous growl which comes in with this stocky engine announces that yes, I'm around. It's not that, it's just like this very quiet guy who just growls when needs to. Right now you can see, it doesn't really make too much noise. At idle it's very, very quiet. It's very comfortable. You sit low down and the controls are forward, so that means your feet are quite forward. Your stance is very comfortable, which also makes it very easy for you to ride. So people normally complain that you are on a bike, that you are your back may hurt, or your shoulders may be hurting because sometimes you're crouching on the handlebars. But in this case, because the seating position is such, and it has been engineered in such a manner that it makes it very comfortable for being on the saddle of the motorcycle without having to hit with the fatigue that you normally associate with motorcycle riding. So if you sit here, your feet are right in front of you. You are already sitting erect without having to, normally like a sports bike, you have to be crouching forward. Here you are sitting comfortably. With this kind of seating position, you can really do a long distance, long hours without feeling the fatigue. See, it's a very heavy motorcycle, so while it may be very good for the highway riding or the long distance riding, cities, it becomes very, very difficult. And being such a large engine, obviously it produces a lot of heat, but you don't feel that heat when you are on the highway. In the city stop and goes traffic, it sometimes could be very, very daunting, especially in the summers. But this is a liquid cooled engine, which is actually much more suitable as compared to the air cooled, especially in summers for the Indian weather conditions. It becomes extremely warm. See, this bike was actually produced by Triumph in UK, and the first models that came out was in 2011. So it has that vintage, so it has a bit of look which is a little bit more vintage compared to today's edgy sort of motorcycles. So it has that old world charm, which is what I really love. The design is typical American cruiser kind. What I really like about this bike is the fact that it is a big bike. It's 339 kilos. It has nearly a 2,900 millimeter length and wide stance of 880 millimeters. So it gives a tremendous amount of presence.
Convince me to buy this bike.
Well, you should be buying this bike for one. It has tremendous road presence. Comfort and the safety are absolutely fantastic on this motorcycle. And of course, it looks fantastic. It's a very well engineered machine. It's safe and fun. In two simple words.
Convince me not to buy it.
One big negative that this motorcycle has, that it has a ground clearance of only 140 millimeters, which causes it to hit the bottom on any kind of small pothole or the speed breaker, which is obviously a big sort of irritant. It just bottoms out.
Yeah.
You should be buying this bike only and only if you are passionate about biking. This is not a safe sport at all. This is not a safe hobby. This has no logic. You can spend your money much better somewhere else. So if you like what I've shared, please like my review, subscribe to the channel, and do not forget to press the bell icon for further notifications.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Thank you, sir.